In this video, improve your English and gain experience by listening to a speech about an interesting topic.
Hi, I'm Eric. Welcome to We Do Topic Talks. Topic Talks is where I make a speech about an interesting topic so people who are learning English can get some experience. Maybe it's a good way to practice. You can watch my example now, and then at the end of the video, there are some questions that you can try to answer. Today's topic is car culture. Cars are an important part of modern life, but they're more than just tools for us to go to work and run errands in daily life. Many people have a special connection to their cars. They love their cars. In some ways, cars are similar to clothes because they express our personalities and reveal our status. They tell the world something about who we are. So it's not surprising that around the world, car culture is strong and active. And like every kind of culture, it varies a lot from country to country. Now, maybe you know that I'm from the US, so I must admit that I'm a little biased, but I think that this society, American society, has a closer connection to cars than any other society in the world. I think it's safe to say that the US has a very strong, maybe the strongest, car culture. But to understand what I'm talking about, first you have to understand what culture really means. Maybe everyone who's listening thinks they know what the word culture means, but can you say the definition very clearly? Well, if you look in any dictionary, you may feel a little confused because it looks very complicated. But I like simple definitions. And since I studied anthropology in college, I like to use the definition I learned from my professor, who said that culture is the way groups of people express themselves, and it's the way they live. So, obviously, language is a big part of culture, and so are the stories we tell. The way we worship, religion, is a big part of culture, and so are all kinds of customs and traditions. But we can express ourselves by the clothes we wear, so fashion is a part of culture. And so is art in general, especially music, because it's combined with language. But culture is also the way we live, as my professor said. So our food is a part of culture, and so is the way we make a living. Yes, your job and how you do your job is a part of your culture. All of these things I've mentioned are parts of culture, and there are many other parts as well. But today I'm talking about cars, and specifically car culture. I've already said that when I hear the word car culture, I think of my home country, the US. I think there are several reasons for this, but maybe the easiest way to explain it is that Americans spend more time in cars than anyone else. I read somewhere that Americans drive twice as much as Europeans, and Americans need their cars. Maybe in a few cities there are good public transportation systems, and the people don't need to use cars to survive. But for most of the people in this country, your car is your life. Think about where you are right now. Are you at home? Imagine what you would need to do in order to go to the nearest shop, like a market or convenience store, if you wanted to get something to eat, like if you just wanted to get a snack, like a donut or some ice cream. How long would it take you to get there without using a car? Could you walk there, or ride your bicycle, or even take a bus or a tram? From my family home, you would need to take a car. There isn't a good bus system there in that area, and if you rode your bicycle, it would take a long time, and walking would be impossible. The only practical choice is to drive. And that's just talking about going to the nearest store. Everything else would be much more difficult. And if you had a job in this kind of town, you definitely would need a car. So, since everything is so far apart and separated by long roads, cars are absolutely necessary for every part of daily life. And my hometown is a typical suburb, similar to most places in the country. So, as you can see, in America, almost everybody needs a car. Here's another question. In your country, how old are people, mostly, when they get their driver's license? In the US, most people get their license when they're 16, and you can get something that's called a learner's permit when you're 15. That's what I did. But how old are most people when they learn to drive for the first time? My father taught me to drive his manual Honda CRX when I was 13. And how old are people generally when they get their first car? Again, I was 16. It was a 1977 Buick Electra. My story is pretty normal where I come from. As you can see, since cars are such necessary parts of life here, and we get introduced to them and begin using and owning cars in our teenage years, cars become a big part of the culture. But this is just the beginning. There are many other reasons why the US has such a strong car culture. For us, cars are also about romance and friendship. Actually, I drove to high school using my first car, that big Buick. It was red and huge, so my friends all gave my car a name. They called it Big Red. And I was older than my friends, so I often drove with groups of people to football practice or to the beach during the summer, and I took them to the mall to hang out on weekends. Again, this is all pretty normal for American high school kids. It becomes a part of our identity, and it's a way for us to hang out with our friends and go on adventures. And at least in the US, dating is a big part of life at that age as well. Well, not only for high school kids actually, but university students and young adults also. Anyway, cars are a big part of dating. For a young couple going out on a date, the car means freedom and privacy. And like I said before, it says something about who you are and it shows your status. If you have a car, you can go anywhere and do anything. And this part of American culture goes back to the old days, when cars became common and easy to buy. In the late 40s and throughout the 50s, cars were more abundant and easier to get in the US than anywhere else in the world. And so, from that time on, cars have been closely connected to the American identity. Cars become romantic and sexy, and because they're a part of our youth and many good memories, cars make us feel nostalgic. Also, car culture might be a result of American geography and history. After World War II, the US became a nation of suburbs. This was a moment in time called suburbanization. All these new towns were constructed for people to live away from the cities and away from the noise. People wanted homes in a quiet suburb far away from everyone else, where they could live independently. And America is a big, wide country, so there were many options for everyone. And like I said, cars give you independence. In most cities, you need trains and buses to go anywhere, and you often see a lot of businessmen going to work or taking business trips using public transportation. But it was a normal part of life in the US for businessmen to drive across the country in their cars. During this time, in the 40s and 50s, American cars were very big and comfortable, and that's because Americans lived in their cars. It was like a second home, so they needed to be roomy and comfortable. And then, because so many Americans were driving long distances all the time, the highways across the country needed many rest stops where people could stop to sleep and eat. Instead of paying for a hotel, they would just sleep in their cars. Although, by the way, around this time, the word motel became known. The word combines motorist, which just means driver, and hotel. So a cheap hotel for motorists is a motorist's hotel, or motel. And another reason Americans love cars so much is because Americans love hobbies. It's just my opinion, but I think people in the US are a little too serious about their hobbies. But it might be a good thing too. Here, whatever group you want to join or whatever skill you want to learn, you can start doing it as a hobby. Car clubs are really common. If you drive on the highways here in the US, it's very likely that you'll see fancy cars, modified cars, classic cars, and every other kind of car that people take care of and enjoy driving as a hobby. So I think I'm talking too much, but this is why people in the US have a car culture. It's a part of our history, and it's a part of our everyday life. It's necessary for work, and it's also connected to our youth when we formed a lot of good early memories. We start driving young, experience romance and adventure and friendship in cars. It's a necessary part of suburban life, and we have fun taking care of cars as a hobby. Truly, it's a rich car culture. So that was my talk about car culture. While I focused on my own country, I'm sure there are different opinions, and I'd love to know what you think. Please tell us in the comments below what the car culture in your country is like. And maybe you have an interesting connection to cars that you'd like to tell us about. Don't be shy. Feel free to participate in the conversation. Also, if you love cars and would like to watch some good YouTube channels that are all about cars, there are many out there. I recommend Jay Leno's Garage. It's not really for English learners, so it may be hard to understand, but he has an amazing collection of cars and he talks about them on his channel. It's very interesting, so please check it out. Anyway, I hope that by listening to me talk about my own experience, it becomes a good example for you, and maybe you can get some ideas about how to tell your own stories. To improve your English speaking ability, you need experience and you need to practice. But for now, please push the like button and subscribe to my channel. See you next time. Questions 1. Fill in the blanks with the correct expressions. Now we have a few questions for you to try practicing with. If you think you would like to try to answer them, just pause the video and take a few minutes to think about it. Then, when you're ready, I'll show you the correct answers. Are you ready? Here are the correct answers. Number 1. If you look in a dictionary, you may feel confused because the definition looks very complicated. Number 2. I read somewhere that Americans drive twice as much as Europeans. Number 3. As you can see, since cars are such a necessary part of daily life, they become a big part of the culture. Number 4. For a young couple going out on a date, the car means freedom and privacy. Number 5. It's just my opinion, but I think people in the US are too serious about their hobbies. Questions 2. Match the words that have the same meanings. Once again, we have a few questions for you to try practicing with. If you think you would like to try, just pause the video and take a few minutes to think about it. Then, when you're ready, I'll show you the correct answers. Are you ready? Here are the correct answers. Number 1. I'm from the U.S., so I am prejudiced, predisposed, biased. But I think the U.S. has the strongest car culture in the world. Number 2. Walking there would be impossible, so the only feasible, realistic, practical choice is to drive to the store. Number 3. Since everything is so far apart, cars are absolutely, completely, unquestionably necessary in daily life. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I hope these videos are good practice for you. If you think it's interesting or helpful, please push the like button below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also, if there's something you would like to hear me talk about in the future, just leave a comment. I'll see you next time. Thank you.